Hi, I'm Charlie, and today we're going to install the Edge and the Pulsar green wave systems. We're going to do this first half of the video for both because they're both common as far as all the way up to the carbon tank. So the first video here will suffice for the first video for both systems. The first thing you want to do is lay out your parts and make sure you have everything you need. If you have a Pulsar, you're going to have an additional filter, the Pulsar filter. If you have the Edge, you will not. But you want to lay everything out and make sure you have everything you need before you start the installation. Now, with that being said, we want to choose a location for the installation. The green wave system is intended to treat all the household water. That would be showers, toilet flushes, consumption water, just basically anything that you're going to use for normal household use. Now, it is not intended, with the yields that we claim and whatnot, for irrigation or outside water spigots. We would recommend that you would plumb those in prior to the green wave system. All the green wave systems are going to require sediment filtration of some sort. If you bought the Solo, it's inferred or intended that you already have that in place. If you buy the Advantage will have that in the form of a sediment cartridge, and then it actually adds a carbon filtration filter for chlorine. Now, the Edge and the Pulsar, they do a 5 micron sediment filter, but they also add a catalytic carbon filter. So, and also it's on a much larger scale for better flow rates, but also better removal, because with a catalytic carbon filter, you're not only removing chlorine, but you're removing chloramines as well as some other contaminants that a typical carbon filter will not pull out. So, with that being said, the first thing that we're going to do, obviously we're at a test booth here, so we've kind of chose our location accordingly, but again, you're going to choose your location either after your well pressure tank, which that's assuming that you don't have oil or iron or manganese or anything like that. If you do have iron or manganese, you'll want to put this after your iron and manganese removal equipment. If you're on city water, it's expected that those things are not in the water, so you're going to put this right after your water meter. But again, keep in mind, if possible, to put those outside spigots or irrigation systems prior to the system. So first thing we want to do is shut off the water. We have ball valves here. Yours may be different. You may have gate valves. But we want to shut off the water, and then we're going to go downstream and open a closed faucet and relieve all the pressure, because we're going to have to cut the plumbing. Here I don't have any plumbing in here right now because this is kind of our mock-up area, but you would cut the plumbing where you're intending to start installing the system, and cut it in a way that you have enough room to get everything mounted and reinstalled. So once we've chosen the location and we've opened the pipe, the first thing we're going to do is install the sediment filter. So I'm going to bring the sediment filter over here. Now, on the sediment filter itself, you're going to get it, and it will not have the bracket on it. The Advantage system has the bracket on it just because it's a dual system that we put together. But for the single housing, you will not have the bracket. There's a couple reasons for this, because this particular housing has a flow direction. I don't know if you can see that, but it says in and it says out, and there's actually arrows here. So depending on which way your plumbing flows depends on which way you'll put the bracket on. Now, we're doing a left to right today, which is typical for most of our drawings and our installations, but it just so happens it's a little bit more difficult with this particular carbon filter, which is fine, because I would rather us illustrate the difficult way than the easy way. But if you were going right to left, it would be a little bit easier as far as the way the plumbing will flow, but you'll see as we get going here. So we know we're going left to right, so we're going to want this inlet with the in on the left. So with that being said, we're going to put the bracket on it, with the bracket coming out the back, so we can mount it to the wall and come in from the left. Now, the filter will come with the housing as well as the filter element, the bracket, the wrench, the screws and the washers. And these screws and washers are intended to mount the bracket to the actual housing. Now, we don't send screws to mount the housing to the wall because your wall covering may vary, so that's really up to you to have those fasteners. So I'm going to go ahead and put the bracket on here now in the way we want it flowing, and then we'll get started. Now, once we've installed the bracket on the housing, then we need to choose a location on the wall. Now, I have some pre-drilled holes here, but if not, you would want to put this somewhat level with your plumbing, make you some marks, and actually install your fasteners. I'm going to go ahead and mount this to the wall now, and then we'll get started with the plumbing. Okay, now we have the sediment filter mounted up. We're actually going to start doing some plumbing. We're using Schedule 80 PVC today, but depending on what your actual material would be, depends on how you would plumb in. Obviously, any place that we have threaded joints, we're going to want a Teflon tape just to ensure that we have a good seal there. So we're going to do that, and you need to keep in mind when it comes to these sediment filters, these actual plastic sediment filters, the thread tolerance is a little bit larger than normal, so be pretty liberal with the Teflon tape here. We want to make sure we have plenty on here to provide a good seal. So I'm going to tape these fittings up, and we'll get this plumbing started. Now, while I'm doing this, we need to plumb from the incoming water to the inlet of the filter. So basically, we need to run pipe from here to here. So I'm going to go ahead and get these taped. We're going to install it in, and then I'm going to get a pipe ran from here to here, and then we'll have our inlet pipe ran to our actual sediment filter. Now that we have our pipe installed from our inlet to the inlet of the sediment filter, we're going to want to prepare the carbon tank. The carbon tank is going to be the next thing that we're going to install in line. So with that being said, there's a couple things that we want to talk about. Let me pull the tank over here. First and foremost, on the tank, when you get it, it's going to have what's called a distributor tube. This distributor tube has a perforated basket in the bottom, and this is what actually isolates the carbon from the water stream, and that keeps the carbon from coming out of your faucet and whatnot. So we want to make sure this is in place, make sure it's not broken or anything, and make sure it's sealed and glued. Once we know that's good, we're going to put it in the tank, and we want to make sure it's in the center, because if you don't have it in the center, you can see where it'll actually stick above the tank a little bit. So if it's exactly in the center like it's supposed to be, it'll drop down and it'll be right even with the top of the tank. You see that? Can you see that all right? Yeah. Now, once that's done, we're going to put some tape over this distributor tube while we fill it, because we don't want to get any gravel or any of the carbon down inside this tube. So we'll get some duct tape here and get over top of it. Take a little piece of duct tape, and then I just put it over the top just so the gravel can't get in there, and then I make a couple little ears by sticking it together. It makes it a little bit easier to grab when you have to pull it off of there. So once we've done that, then you're going to get your supplied funnel. Each Green Wave Edge and Pulsar system will come with a funnel so you can actually fill it. Now, I want to take the time and show you how the carbon's actually packaged. So I'm going to go over and get that so you can see how it will come to your home. Both the Edge and the Pulsar are going to come with 13 by 54 inch tanks. That represents 13 inch in diameter, 54 inches tall. A tank that size is going to hold 2.5 cubic feet of carbon. But we also put gravel in the bottom just to help to distribute the water evenly through that carbon bed. So you're going to get a small box of carbon, I think it's 25 pounds, and then you'll get a full cubic foot of carbon, a full cubic foot of carbon, a half cubic foot of carbon, and then again the gravel. So the full cubic feet of carbon, they're going to come in the actual package that they're shipped to us in, so it'll be, you know, just a full bag. But when you get a half cubic foot of carbon, it's going to come in our own clear plastic bag of the same material, and it'll be wire tied in the smaller box. Same way with the gravel, there'll be gravel in a plastic bag, wire tied in a smaller box. So what we're going to do is we're going to put the gravel in first, all of it. We don't send extra media or gravel, so you're always going to put in everything that we send you. But you want to put the gravel in first just to make a nice bed in there. And when you do that, you want to make sure you kind of hold this distributor down, and in the center you don't want it to pop up under and then get gravel underneath it. So make sure you hold it down and try to center it as you pour the gravel in. And then you're going to pour the rest of the carbon in. Now, it's a good idea to wear a dust mask and safety goggles. I mean, some of this could get in your eye, get in your tear duct or something like that and be very aggravating. It's non-toxic, it's just, it could be an irritant. So another idea too, it works really good, especially if you're in a finished basement or something like that, is if you get a shop vac and you have a helper hold the funnel and hold the shop vac close to the top of the tank, what'll happen is as you pour this in, that dust can be pulled into the shop vac, and it's less likely to put a coating on everything in the room. So keep in mind your personal protective equipment, as well as, you know, if you want to cut down that dust, bring that shop vac into place. If you're using the shop vac, don't forget to put the filter in it because they'll just blow it out the other end. But it is a good idea to have those things in place. It'll make for a much cleaner job. Now, once this is all installed, then we'll remove the duct tape and we'll remove the funnel, which we're going to do that now. Now, once you've removed the duct tape, make sure you get it all off there and make sure there's no sticky remnants. If there is, try to rub it off with your thumb. We don't really want to use anything abrasive to get the stickiness off. So it usually doesn't leave very much residue if you left it on there for a couple months maybe, but just for a couple minutes it usually doesn't leave much. Now, once this is full, if it's possible, it's a good idea to fill this up with water. If we let the carbon saturate for a while and actually wetten and thicken up, then when we go to rinse it, it'll be dramatically reduced, the amount of time it'll take to get clear water. So if you can fill it up, great. If you can't, then you just know that it's going to be a little bit longer to rinse all the carbon fines out. No matter what we do when we pour carbon in here, there's still some dust that is created in there. So when the water goes through, it picks that up because, I mean, it's, you know, almost microscopic. So the first little bit of water that comes out of here will almost look like a tinted glass color. The best way to check as we're rinsing to see if you've rinsed it well enough is to use like a white styrofoam or plastic cup, because in a clear glass you can't really tell if it's tinted still or not, but in that white cup you'll be able to see if it's clear or if it's actually still has a little bit of a black tint to it. So if you can, fill this up with water and let it soak. If you can't, then go ahead and start putting the upper head on. Now that's what we're going to do because again, we're not going to install this. This is just a mock install for the video. So it's going to come with what we call in the industry an in and out head. Now, even though it is an in and out head, it isn't necessarily marked in and out, because depending on where you put the inlet or the outlet depends on which way the water will flow through this tank. So if you look on the top of this head, you'll see where it says downflow and upflow inlet on each side. So don't get thrown off. I mean, both sides are going to say inlet, but we'll explain exactly how to hook this up as we actually install it. Now, the other key parts of this head is inside the middle here, there's an O-ring that actually seals around the distributor, and then there's a larger O-ring that actually seals on this nylon surface. So what we want to do is make sure that it's lubricated. Now, you don't want to use anything petroleum based. Anything petroleum based will swell these O-rings and they'll leak for sure. You always want to use food grade silicone grease, which this is what we sell on our site. If you don't have this, then corn oil or vegetable oil will work, but we just want to put a light little coating of grease on both of these O-rings, just so we make sure we get a nice smooth fit and nothing pinches and grabs and twists the O-rings. So once we've done that, then what we're going to do is install what's called the upper basket. This is a segmented upper basket, but yours may vary. Sometimes they look like a cone. They're all just as effective, so don't really get caught up on that. I mean, these are usually what comes with these in and out heads. That's why you'll see them with this system. But like I said, if we end up, you know, with some surplus cones, they may be in more of a cone shape. But they all work the same. They fit in here, and you just kind of push and lock them in place. Push and turn, and then they lock in place. Now, this hole is intended to go over the distributor tube. So you fit that over the tube, then you push it down, and then we're going to screw this in clockwise. Now, this should screw in pretty easily. If you're having a hard time screwing it in, you know, now I'm not saying starting it, because sometimes it's tough to get it started on that distributor tube, but if you start to spin it in and it don't spin in this easy, then you probably have it cross-threaded. So don't keep going with it, you're going to screw something up. But it should really literally spin in that easy. Once you have it spun in, then go ahead and tighten it as far as you can by hand, and then you can even take the palm of your hand and just give it a couple wraps just to make sure that it's really tight. Now, once we've done that, we're going to install what's called the bypass valve on here. This is the bypass valve. It's going to come ready to go to install with the O-rings in place. Again, make sure you use a little bit of silicone grease or whatever you have, as long as it's not petroleum based, and lube these O-rings up. And then we're going to just push this into the, start the collars. Let's see. And then if you look on here, there's actually little nubs on here that stops you from how far you can tighten these collars up. So you tighten these collars all the way down until you touch off on those nubs. And you don't need to put tools on this. You just tighten them hand tight and that's it. If you go any further with tools, you're just going to break it. Now, you can see that it flexes and moves around in there. That's on purpose. That's so you can have some flexibility for tank deflection, as well as some water hammer, things like that. So once pressure gets on here, this will get pretty tight. It won't move that easily. So if you see that moving, don't worry, that's normal. Now, next thing that we would do is we are going to install the actual connection fittings. I have these pre-assembled, but I'm going to take one apart because yours may not be assembled when you get them, and I want to make sure you understand how to put these together. So let me take this back apart real quick, and then I'll show you how this works. Now, when you get these, you're going to have the fitting, the nut, the O-ring, and then the retaining clip. This retaining clip holds the nut on the fitting, so we're going to do that first. We'll put the nut on the fitting, and then you can see there's two slots, one here and one here. This is for the retaining clip and this is for the O-ring. So we're going to pop this on and pop it all the way down to that slot where it belongs. And then you can see the retaining clips all the way down inside there, and then the nut can't come off. And then we're going to put the O-ring on the other slot here, and that's the O-ring slot. Now, you're going to do that to both fittings, and then we're going to lube this O-ring so we can install it into the tank. Again, you're going to push it in the tank, and you tighten down your nut until it stops and hits the nubs. And then that's all the farther you need to tighten it. And they're going to move around in there, and you'll be able to twist them. That's how they're intended. Okay, now on this particular tank, we want to plumb the inlet to the downflow inlet, and it says it actually right on here, downflow inlet. So the outlet from the sediment filter is going to come to the downflow inlet of the carbon filter, and that's what we're going to do now. We're going to place this tank and plumb the inlet in place. Okay, so this is the outlet of the sediment filter, and this is the inlet of the carbon filter. So we're going to have to go underneath and hit this particular fitting. So that means our fitting leaving the carbon filter going downstream, we're going to have to go over the top. So we're going to have to come in the bottom with the inlet and out the top with the outlet. So I'm going to go ahead and plumb in from the outlet of the sediment filter to the downflow inlet of the carbon filter. Now, once we've plumbed the outlet of the sediment filter to the inlet of the carbon filter, then we can go ahead and stop with this video. The next video you'll watch will be the second half. If you have the Pulsar, you'll watch the Pulsar second half. If you have the Edge, you'll watch the Edge second half.